Oh, wonderful. On our little trip visiting all of our 2026 exhibitors at the Cool Climate Wine Summit, I made it to the beautiful German wine region Rheingau. Have been here many times actually, like around Geisenheim especially, where the University of Geisenheim is located, where you also studied, Sophie, right?
That is right.
So I'm sitting here with Sophie Egert, which is a big pleasure. Know you also, like I think, for quite a while now. You have been in Copenhagen many times, not only at the Cool Climate Wine Summit last year, but also like with other initiatives. And in general, I mean, you are quite much around on the, let's say, German wine trade fair, right? So
that is right. But we have been many times to Denmark as well, because we want to, yes, get into the Danish market, because we do speak Danish. So that's the reason why.
Because you are half Danish.
Yes, right. That's the reason why we have been to Denmark so many times, and because we love the country.
That's of course like especially funny having somebody or a family who's half Danish actually and lives here in the Rheingau for quite a while. But before diving into the estate and into your winemaking philosophy and the wines, let's start with some more like personal introduction. We have some questions we ask all the winemakers that we are interviewing for the summit, and the first one for you is, if you would not be a winemaker today, what would be your alternative path of life?
I've thought about many jobs when I was little, so I guess I would be like a very creative, would be in a creative job, maybe something like design or architecture, something like that. I think that would be it. But I think as well that winemaking is also very creative, so I think I've found the sweet spot doing something with hands and just working, and on the other hand you have to be a little bit creative with the wine, but also with the labels and the marketing. So I think it's a very nice mixture, but it would be something in that direction.
Something in that direction, somewhere between architecture and design, which is beautiful. Now you are a winemaker today. So second question, if you have to point to somebody or maybe like some influence that you had in your career as a winemaker, somebody or some group of people that really inspired your style of winemaking and how you approach winemaking, is there anybody coming to your mind?
I think it would be, on one hand, be the internship I did in South Africa at Graham Beck, because they were doing sparkling wine, or well, just sparkling wine, and I've just learned really a lot about the whole production when I was there. And then also I went to England. It was only for 10 days, but again it was about the theme sparkling wine, and then I've learned a lot about disgorging and tasting and all that stuff. So I think those two were really inspiring times for me.
And that being said, you just published your first or released your first sparkling wine, your first own sparkling wine last year, right? It was the first vintage. So
it's from 2020, and I've just released it in March, so it's very, very new on the market. And
we're not going to taste it today, but I'll link it in the show notes definitely. It's called Sophie, like you were called, and I can just say it's a beautiful sparkling, definitely. Third question, maybe a little bit of a mean one, but if you should describe yourself and your personality as a bottle of wine, which style or which wine comes to your mind?
Okay, again, maybe very boring, but I would guess I would be a sparkling wine, just because I like to party and I like to go out, and like sparkling wine, when you open it, it's loud and it's bubbling and stuff like that. I think that would really describe my personality.
I love that, definitely. And it's like also like the answer that I would definitely give about myself, so to say. But I had a very interesting talk to like a winemaker in Denmark who was describing himself also like as a sparkling wine, but he also like focused very much on the patient side that you need during the production process, right?
I'm not good at that.
Not good at that. Okay, so here it's more like we aligned more on the party, on the bubbly, on the energy and life side. That's great. Good. Final question for the introduction round. It's more like an open statement. It's just like nature. If you think about nature and its role in your winemaking process and the work in the vineyards, what associations come to your mind?
Yes, we are trying to do as much as we think we have to, but also we are trying to keep everything as pure as, so that everything can come and spark by itself. So as well as in the vineyard, as also in the cellar, really trying to show the characteristics of the wine, so that Hattenheimer Wisselbrunn really tastes as a Hattenheimer Wisselbrunn, so that the vineyard really comes through.
And this is something actually, I mean, now next part is that you introduce a little bit the estate to us, but maybe also like a tiny bit, when you give us an introduction about the Weingut Egert now, also like a little bit introduction about yourself and how you now take over the family estate and what your approach to winemaking is.
What? Was that a question?
Please, yeah. So the question is maybe to make it more concrete. Please introduce the winery Egert to us, right. And also like yourself a tiny bit more and your background.
So Weingut Egert is here located in Hattenheim, quite in the middle of Rheingau. We are around 10 hectares big. We have 80% Riesling, then a little bit of Pinot Noir. We only do rosé out of the Pinot Noir, and then we have a little bit of Pinot Blanc and a very young baby vineyard Chardonnay, which will only be for sparkling wine. I have been, I've grown on this estate, so I've always been working here, just like my brother. He's 2 years younger than me, Max. Both he and I, we just started working here full-time in 2020 when we finished our studies, me at Geisenheim and he was in Weinsberg. Since then we are really bringing our work in here in this winery and also our own philosophy. So as I was just saying, with this philosophy, how we are working with nature, I think that's something that really my brother and I are forcing a little bit more. And I've just, as I was saying before, released my own sparkling wine. So we are doing the whole process of the sparkling wine method by ourselves, so also disgorging and it's quite a challenge but also very fun, and that's also the focus in the future.
Another focus, I think, as I understood it from you, is you want to, and you said it like already before when answering the nature question, for you it's very important that you show the terroir of each wine in the bottle, which is very important in the Rheingau in general, right? Because we are working with some fantastic wine sites here, but I don't know, how's your take maybe on that when you look at the development in the Rheingau, because the Rheingau has been maybe a little bit also like known for mass production in the last decades, and now I think there's a big change like towards quality production again from the young winemakers. Or is that a correct observation, or how do you perceive it?
We have not so many hectares here, only 3,200. So maybe there were some wineries that were more focused on mass production, but I think all the small wineries, just like us, around 10 hectares, there are a lot of them that were really focusing a little bit more of, just making some very good wines. But I think a reason why we really want to show the different vineyard sites is because we have a very similar soil or terroir here in the middle of Rheingau. If you go to Hochheim, and you have a different soil, and also if you go to Lorch and Rüdesheim, you again have a different soil. But here in the middle of Rheingau, we have very beautiful vineyard sites, and it's very similar, but still some differences, and also with a micro climate. So I think that is why it is so fun for us to do wines, especially from one vineyard site, to show the difference between the different vineyard sites, so that a Hattenheimer Hassel tastes different in every year than a Hattenheimer Wisselbrunn, even though they are neighbors. But you can really show that there is a character behind it.
And let's start with the first wine. Now we talked so much about terroir. Now what do we get in the glass?
So I just chose the Hattenheimer Hassel from 2023 because I think it's one of my favorites from 23. So I wanted to show this one, and it's since 23 was actually a year with a little bit more rain, and it was cold during the harvest. Thank you. Right. So acidity was actually a little bit higher in 23, but this wine made recipes are made...
Malolactic fermentation.
Thank you, right. Made malolactic fermentation.
Biologischer Säureabbau in German. What a wonderful word for people to learn.
It sounds very German as well. And also was fermented spontaneously. So yeah, and then it just stopped with 4 grams. So I think this wine is really in balance in residual sugar and also with acidity.
I think kind of funny how you say like it's 2023. I mean, fairly cold vintage, as you said, and it has these like green reflections in it, which somehow like shows to me sometimes, like especially in the cooler vintages, like this is how Riesling appears in the glass, right? The warmer it gets, the more it gets like in the yellowish touch, but here we really have some more like green reflections, which is kind of beautiful color-wise. Oh, but there's power in the glass actually.
In the beginning, or also in the cellar already, it has very a bloomy character somehow. It was very different to all the other wines in the cellar.
It's very electric to me, as if I give it like a vibe somehow. It's more like electric. It's quite like go out, go clubbing somehow. I don't know.
Let's go.
A lot of energy coming out of the glass. Floral, of course, as you say, like really nice mature fruit. Despite being a cool vintage, I mean, it's not like so much on the green apple or the green pear side. It's really like going towards more like stone fruit to me. Very citrusy, naturally. Oh, beautiful balance.
So with the Hattenheimer vineyard, you always get a little touch of this mineralic or saltiness because we have this Lehm and Löss.
Lehm and Löss is Lehm is clay and Löss is Löss in English.
Okay, great. We have this soil, but also a little bit of our Taunus, which is the mountains in the background that keep a lot of rains and storms away from us. So that's why Rheingau is very sunny and maybe not so much rainy. So we get a little bit of quartzit, which is quartz.
I think it's quartz in English, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Hattenheim, so that always gives a little bit of this saltiness.
And it's kind of interesting if I think about. I mean, for me, this is a very classic Rheingau Riesling, and I'm always like just coming from the Mittelrhein. I discussed with the winemakers also about styles. You know, the Mosel is usually getting into a style which is more oily, more acacia honey-like. It's always very bold, very dense Riesling styles, except when you go to the R maybe, where you have the like great like acidic with the sugar contrast. But for me, it's like when I talk about a very classic, lean, crisp mineral Riesling, I usually point to the Rheingau as an example, right? And this is something I think like people have to be maybe a tiny bit more aware of, how different the Rieslings from the different German growing regions actually come in style, right?
That's right. And I think sometimes people are saying like, yeah, that tastes like a typical Rheingau Riesling. It's sometimes you think like, okay, is that a bad thing? You know what I mean? It always sounds bad, but I think why we want to show our character and our soils. So of course it tastes like a Rheingau Riesling. Shouldn't be something bad. Something good, you know what I mean? It
should definitely be something good, but I think sometimes like, everybody, I don't know how it is in Germany, but if we look outside, you know, I mean, it's very much like Moselle is of course dominating the export markets, and then of course Pfalz and Rheinhessen are very strong, right? And I mean, you get good Rheingau Riesling, for example, in Scandinavia, but I think it's not like that widespread, and people. I mean, if you then go to the Mittelrhein, of course, there's a total catastrophe. Nobody knows the Mittelrhein, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
But it's really like something that I think is also like important. It's a cool climate wine summit that we have so many German winemakers from so many different regions. I mean, Rheingau is to me still like a very classic cool climate wine growing region. I mean, if you talk about the classic definition of 50 degrees north, 50 degrees north hits Schloss Johannisberg by, I think, 0.01 degrees. I think it's 50.01 degrees north where Schloss Johannisberg is located.
Yes.
So we are really here on the edge of cool climate, so to say, right? Or in a classic cool climate region. So therefore I think it's very nice to showcase something like this. But maybe talking about this and maybe thinking a little bit ahead, because the next thing we have to talk about naturally is global warming. and how it affects you here.
So when I was studying in Geisenheim, and I finished in 2020, it was already then that they said the last 5 years were the hottest years and the driest years we ever measured. So I thought that was very frightening on some point. And then, 21 was a little bit cooler and very wet, but then 22 came and 23, and you know, it's not always it's the hottest summer, but then it's the hottest March, and then it's the driest March and the driest winter. So it's very scary to hear that. Somehow now still I think the vines are doing well with, you know, they are really they can live a summer with a little bit less rain. That's okay. They have already, how shall I say, they're already
get used to it, so to say.
Yes, yes, right. And also they have very, very deep roots. Of course, if you plant a new baby vine, it's very hard for it to grow by itself without watering it during summer. And also, we don't have to talk about Rüdesheim and Lorsch, where the soils are not as they can't really hold the water as well as here in the middle of Rheingau.
with the clay and with the loess, you have better let's say water storage.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Capacity, yes. So they have totally different problems over there, I have to say.
And that's, I mean, just to like give an idea, right, about the Rheingau, it's 20 kilometers, 15 kilometers in this direction, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
10 minutes drive by car, yeah.
It's kind of interesting how the Rheingau is really so split, right, from the terroir perspective.
Yes. So, yeah, I think we have to see. Already since 10 years, people are asking me, how long will you have Riesling in Rheingau? Because Riesling is maybe not the favorite plant for that. I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how fast is the climate change, how will it affect, how I think nature is a little bit more clever than we are. You know, that's what I was saying with the vines are kind of, coming along with that, or maybe, found some other ways to survive. So with the hot years that we have to say, okay, 2018 maybe was very hot, we have less acidity. A lot of people don't like acidity in Riesling, so maybe good for them, good style for them. Finally they can try and drink Riesling again. Maybe it's a good thing in that case. And then on the other side, of course, it's not only that everything gets warmer and drier, it's also, I mean, it has always been very hard being a winemaker. If you would know what weather will be in summer and then during harvest, you would already in January do other decisions with pruning. If you would knew if there's coming frost in April or May or something like that, but we don't know. And all these things are getting stronger and coming more often. So we have frost, we have hail during harvest. So Rheinhessen, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, a colleague just wanted to harvest her Pinot Noir the next day, and then she maybe should have done it on that day, because next day the hail just destroyed maybe half of the grapes. So
ridiculous,
if we know what's going to happen, we could arrange this, but we don't know. And it's just many things. It's not only that it gets warmer and hotter and drier, it's also those big storms and everything that's happening.
So uncertainty is just getting bigger and bigger, and that makes it very difficult for you, because you have to react to it, and fast and sometimes unprepared. And this is of course like something that we have seen in recent vintages, right? Be it the frost, be it the hail, as you say, be it flooding like events in summer after long periods of drought, right? So you have a big problem. So how are you coping with that? What is your strategy at Estate Egert? You have developed one, or all in on PV?
Do we have a strategy? I don't know. Does a colleague have a strategy?
Maybe we can talk a little bit about, because I mean, you are here in Geisenheim. I think you studied here, probably studied with many of your young colleagues who still are in the area. You know, a lot of like young people in the winemaking scene. So when you meet with people, you're also like a member of Generation Riesling, the German club or association for young winemakers. When you meet people from the industry and you discuss those things, do you feel they have a strategy, or do you think everybody is a little bit like experimental? And do you have a good exchange about things that work and things that don't work and experiences they have?
I guess Geisenheim, they are doing a lot of studies, and so they do a lot, and they're also spreading their word, and you know, you can read articles in newsletters and stuff like that. What maybe also was inspiring when I was in South Africa, I mean, it is lots hotter and drier than it is here, and you come there and you see vines, so okay, they can also manage to grow vines or grapes there. So yeah, what do they do different, which is very what you can already see when you go there. So here in Germany, we always wanted to have big canopies, so you know, a lot of leaves that will do a lot of, or produce a lot of sugar, so that our grapes get very ripe during harvest. They don't do big canopies, they do small canopies, because they don't want this much sugar as we always wanted, because we have been a cool climate. So I think it's all those small little things that we can still manage and change, which is also nothing that, you know, if we now would go to PV, we would have to erase is maybe not the right word, but you know, take a whole vineyard out and then replant. That would cost a lot of money. So yeah, I think we can do already some things that don't cost as much money in the beginning to arrange and
adapt, so to
yes,
say. Yeah.
right, to climate change.
Wonderful. Let's go for another wine. I'm looking at the Spätlese.
Yes.
Here, and I mean, I must say, of course, when I think about Spätlese, I think about Rheingau, right? Because allegedly it was invented here at Schloss Johannesberg.
Schloss Johannesberg,
in 1775 or something like this.
That's
I think.
right, 1775. Yeah.
Got a fun story. We'll link it in the show notes for everybody who wants to know about it. But yeah, it's a funny tale about the Rheingau, that the Spätlese was invented here.
And the cabinet as well.
And the cabinet as well, exactly. Good. So
yeah,
all the good things.
Right. So 2022 we still had the old wine system, so that's why it's called Riesling Spätlese Trocken. So Spätlese means that it has had a certain amount of sugar during harvest. That's why we can call it a Spätlese. But still, because a lot of people think it is also always a sweet wine, it can also be dry or semi-dry. And this one is now from 2022, Hattenheimer Wisselbrunnen. I was just talking about those two vineyard sites, so that's why I chose those. Yeah, it's called Hommage à Jean. We have so during fermentation, there were single berries with the wine in the tank. So the berries give, or from the skin, you get a very nice way of getting phenols into the wine, but not hard phenols, more like smooth. That's why I like to put some berries to the wine into the tank during fermentation.
I mean, you get it immediately in the nose, right? I mean, there's something spicy, something edgy. It's a little bit like a tiny bit greenish too, but also like very mature fruit and a lot of citrus. Very much like layered complexity. Looking forward to the palate, actually. I mean, there you really feel it, right? So now, where you explained it, I mean, there are tannins in the wine.
It's a structure that
it's really like a good structure and backbone and nice acidity, and sugar is totally down at also 4 grams, or are we below that?
Yeah, below it's I think it's 1 gram.
It's 1 gram. Okay, even so totally bone dry actually.
Yeah, and also the acidity is a little bit higher because that one didn't do a malolactic fermentation.
It's so concentrated, so structured, so layered actually. 12.5% alcohol. I mean, really also gives it like an amazing body right on the palate. It's definitely like a bottle you would like to put away for a while. Or
that's right.
At least you need some solid food on the table. I mean, it's really like food pairing wine. I mean, I know of course we always like to drink it anyway like that and enjoy it, but I think like usually you'd pair it with some food, right? It's kind of really nicely structured and great example of such terroir wine. So Hattenheimer Winzerbrunn, if you describe the terroir to us a little bit, what are we working with here?
So there are those 3 Brunnenlagen or fountain sites. We have Hattenheimer Nussbrunnen, Hattenheimer Winzerbrunn, and Erbacher Markobrunnen. They are all on next to each other. They profit of underground water pipes. Somehow, naturally, water pipes. So you can really see that in a very dry year, those vineyards, they can manage. They have enough water. They can manage to bring beautiful fruits, but also in a little bit more wet year, you really have to to check the vineyard many times, because it can easily be that these vineyards get botrytis sooner than other ones, just because they have enough water from underneath, and then also from rain. Also, I mean, we're now talking about the vineyard sites, and on the other hand, we have to say that it's just maybe a stone or a way or anything that is deciding, okay, this is now Winzerbrunn and this is Hassel. So of course, the soil is not totally different, just beneath or next to it. So Hattenheimer Hassel is just over Winzerbrunn. Of course, it's very similar, but still, I don't know, you can really see with the Winzerbrunn, with all those, with the water, that it is also always a little bit different than Hassel. And always more, maybe, always very elegant and this mineralic, I have to say.
So a big invitation actually to join us at the Cool Climate Wine Summit in Copenhagen in 2026 and get a little bit of a terroir tasting with Sophie, or just come by here in Hattenheim in the Rheingau during the summer. To round it off, 5 years from now, where are you and where's the Egert estate?
Yeah, maybe we're not Weingut anymore, but a Sektgut. Well, maybe not in 5 years, maybe in 10. That's really the focus I'm laying, and that direction I want to go. Still in Hattenheim, I guess, and 5 years older then.
I love it. Sophie, thanks for having me.
Yes,
and see you in Copenhagen in January. Cheers.
Yeah. See you.